G'day, Adam Rose from CQU. Welcome to International Water Day. Today we'll talk to you a bit about our rivers, but I urge you on International Water Day to take a bit of time off over lunch or the afternoon and go down and have a look at your local system and understand that it's unique. There's nothing else like it. In Australia we've got 200 catchments and they are as unique as the populations they serve. For those people that don't know, this is actually the second largest catchment in Australia behind the Murray-Darling. Now, I don't like talking about the Murray-Darling because there's 1,000 other people down there talking about it. But this one here, it's the largest to discharge into the Great Barrier Reef. I suppose one good thing about the Fitzroy catchment and where the reef is, up north the reef is a lot closer to the catchment, whereas the Swains and the reef down here are 180 kilometres out. And so the Fitzroy impacts more of that coastal marine ecosystem, so the seagrass beds and some of that Wapabara country, the corals and that around the keppels. I think the biggest problem is a lack of understanding from the public. We often see the reef and other things on the news and how bad a condition they're in, but in actual fact, this thing behind us here is in a lot more precarious position than say the reef. Because we live close to our rivers and creeks, just being close to them means that we have more impact on them. With that said, they're not necessarily as sexy as the reef, as you can see behind us here today. It's a bit more like a chocolate milkshake. And so just getting people and bringing to their attention that we need to start looking after these things behind us. And if we look after those, a lot of the other ecosystems upstream and downstream of them will also benefit. So if we were to leave this river behind us to itself, it's going to get worse. So the river will get deeper in sections because those floods scour them out. More sediment will leave the system. And so it's taken me 20 years to turn around. I did my PhD on the last natural system in the region, and I thought that dams weren't necessarily a good idea. With the paradigm shift and the way that I see things now, we have to get in and actually help the river back to health. Now, I don't want to see 100 of the structures like we see behind us, but structures to reduce the velocity of the water and actually hold that water upstream in the catchment is vitally important. It allows the animals and plants to do what they've always done, reproduce. So as an ecologist, my job is to get that environment in a situation where the animals and plants are reproducing. If they're reproducing, we know we're winning. Besides building more structures in the actual water bodies themselves, encouraging farmers to clean out their old dams to make sure their carrying capacity are increased, starting to contour on the land a little bit to slow the velocity of that water down. If we can slow the velocity of water in the catchment down, it'll slow it down in the river itself. But I think a really important part of that will be for the locals in the catchment to make decisions. The decisions need to be made by Durhambul scientists and farmers.
So this ecosystem is currently fairly degraded. The catchment health is suffering. We have seen that in the most recent report cards for this catchment. Ecology is fairly significantly disturbed, and that's because of the toxicants in the water and also the general water quality. You can see a lot of sediment in this water today. If anything, we've made the flow go faster with all of our anthropogenic disturbances. So we need to have a think about that and restore our riverbank systems. Even though we are using them for recreational uses, we still need to maintain the trees and those natural ecosystems that exist along those riverbank systems, because that's going to help us slow the flow. At the moment, Capricorn Conservation Council is concerned about mining releases. So when there's a huge rainfall event, they'll be allowed to release their water because of the dilution factor, but that still does release toxicants and high salinity into this catchment, and that is having fairly significant impacts on ecology, but also on the water we end up drinking that comes out of the tap.